Alright everyone, it's time for your daily clown world. Link in the description. You should definitely watch this video. This was posted by Pasobiec earlier, and it's hilarious, actually. It appears to show the Black Hebrew Israelites sparring with Palestine protesters, some of which appear to be explicitly Hamas supporters, in the city of Chicago. And it's just, it's otherworldly. This is sort of like a Chaz Garden moment, in my opinion, as far as how funny it is. Because it's the Black Hebrew Israelites, so the Das Right people. You remember how they have also sparred with people who are Jewish before? By claiming to be the original Israelites, the whole concept of that particular black supremacy movement is that they're Jews. They profess that they're the ones that are going to, I guess, build the temple and stuff. They kind of go after white people some, or basically anyone who denies any aspect of their ideology. And they've actually organized some fairly significant marches over the years. At first it was more like a joke group, I think, but then their ranks swelled, I think partially because of internet memes about them. And people thought it was hilarious. And now they're actually fighting like the pro-Palestine protesters. I guess the idea is that Israel is fine, but it should be run by the Black Hebrew Israelites or something like that. And it's just looking at this video. Again, it's like we've definitely devolved into some clownery here when this sort of thing is going on, and it's becoming more and more regular as well. People are, hitting each other in the streets over, the basic disagreements over sociopolitics and stuff, often issues that like 20 years ago, because the internet was less developed, they wouldn't even know existed. That's one thing that I wanted to talk about. Beyond how funny this is, and it is funny, don't get me wrong, there's a reason why I'm talking about it. I did enjoy, I'm just thinking about the weird shit that they must have been saying to each other as well, like the stuff that didn't get caught on camera. It must have been pretty funny, some of the insults that were flung before the fists started flying. I wish that I had a clip of that. But the other aspect is that when people get blackpilled or they think like the world is devolving into chaos or something, you do really have to understand, especially you younger users. Some of you are younger than me. You don't remember a time in which you weren't bent over your smartphone 24/7. You don't remember a time in which you went to the grocery store in at least small-town America and there weren't computers everywhere and stuff like that. I can remember that. For the average person, even in the developed world, up until at least the middle or late 2000s, things were disconnected. In small-town America, typically, people would have computers. There was home internet and stuff like that up before that period since the 90s. But oftentimes, a lot of people in society, if they were using the internet at all, it was like at an internet cafe, if there was one available, or at a public library or at a school or something like that. It really isn't until the middle of the 2000s that pretty much everyone is hooked up. And even then, they're not hooked up 24/7. Because it isn't another 5 years before you get smartphones being beefy enough to really do much of anything for the average person. Again, people who are wealthy get in on these things first. There was always that cool kid in 2000 in school that had the smartphone, but most people didn't. Or at least the brick phone. Smartphones weren't a thing yet, but they had the old brick phone that you could beat someone to death with. Because of that constant interconnectivity between people, you hear about bad shit, because bad shit is what gets the clicks, so that's what's mainly reported on. When people die or are harmed or something like that, that's grade A news. You're getting exposed to stuff that 20 or 30 years ago you probably wouldn't have gotten exposed to, unless you happen to be an avid newspaper reader, and then it was through the filter of the legacy media. Now that you have citizen journalism, numbering in the many hundreds of thousands of significant content creators, by the way. The legacy media is dying. You have citizen journalism. You have news availability from some village in Kazakhstan. You hear about more tragic events, simply by design. That's sort of the way human communication has begun to work. when we see weird shit, therefore, like this might have gotten in the news 20 years ago because fucking hilarious. Somebody would have reported on it outside of local media, probably. NBC would have had on the late night at 8:30, at 8:30, somebody on NBC would have, intoned about it for 10 seconds. And also, now to Chicago news, we have black racists versus Islamofascists, or something like that. And it would have been very filtered and dry, and that would have made it unintentionally funny, by the way. I'm just thinking about, like, Tom Brokaw in his heyday reporting on something like this. Very droll and very dry, and how funny that would be. Or like, fucking Larry King or something like that. But it's definitely clown world. It's definitely funny. But when you see things like this is my warning to people. Don't get all demoralized and think, oh my god, the world is going to hell. I mean, I hear people that are this is another thing. I hear people that are teenagers that sound like some bitter 55-year-old reminiscing about the good old days or something like that. A lot has changed over the last couple of decades. Things are unrecognizable in some ways. But the more things change, the more they stay the same. War and terror and people fighting and weird shit like this is the norm for human society because we're a bunch of apes. We are hominids, effectively. We're just less hairy versions of our cave-dwelling ancestors. I know that that's a quasi-mythology, the idea of cave people. I've discussed that from an archaeological perspective before. It doesn't really matter, though. These people that beat up one another with wooden clubs and stuff. Is that really different from what we're seeing today? No, it's just that now typically people use guns instead. In some cases, nuclear weapons, which is regrettable that they were developed in some ways because now we can destroy our entire planet potentially. But when I see Blackhebrews versus Hamas supporters, I couldn't help but get a chuckle. Where some people are like, oh my god, the world's going to hell. I'm more like, I mean, I know it's grave humor, but I just can't do anything other than sit by and say, well, it's Chicago. I don't think this would be likely to happen in the average small town. I don't think it's going to happen in a rural area. But when we look at a handful of very cosmopolitan, metropolitan regions in the United States, okay, I'll give you one. For the black pillars out there, yes, it appears that some of our cities have indeed gone completely batshit. New York City is probably the biggest. Chicago's definitely giving it a run for its money, though. I guess Chicago wins by default because of the lower metropolitan population and land area. So if you can compact that much crazy into that sort of area with that many people, yeah, you give Manhattan a run for its money. Detroit would be up there. Well, Detroit and Flint at this point. The whole region of Detroit, other than the airport. The Detroit airport's actually pretty nice. If you've ever gone through that one, it's actually very developed, actually very pleasant and efficient by all considered means compared to a lot of airports in the world. Logan International. Anyway, clown world. I thought that everyone would get a kick out of this clip this morning, so we'll start off with the funny news first and the anti-black pill warning. That's about all. Peace out.